Super quick question here. How many tabs do you have open right now? If you're like me, it's a lot. And if you're running a business, it's a lot more. And with all those tabs, you're spending more time searching through data and less time, growing your business. But HubSpot's customer platform brings all your tools into a single powerful place that your teams can use together. So close those tabs. It's business growing time. Visit HubSpot.com to get started today.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, September 18th. I'm Mark Dent here with Juliet, Bennett, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Ten years ago, Flappy Bird was one of the most popular games in the App Store, surpassing some 50 million downloads as of January 2014. But then its creator abruptly removed Flappy Bird because he thought it was way too addictive, which was probably true. Now, however, Flappy Bird is coming back. It's scheduled to hit iOS and Android probably by next year. But there is just one issue here. The creator is not involved, and rights to the game were essentially wrangled away by crypto bros. So we're going to chat about all of that here in a bit, but first let's give you the hits and headlines in business and tech. Starting off with the economy. Yesterday, the Fed began a 2-day meeting, and today intends to announce its benchmark federal funds interest rate. Inflation, as you likely know, has been moderating. Job growth has been cooling off a little bit. So economists and Wall Streeters very much anticipate the Fed to reduce this rate for the first time since 2020. Over in social media, Instagram is going to move users under 16 to new teenager accounts with parental supervision controls. This would give parents the ability to limit app times and see who their kids are direct messaging. Speaking of kids, and speaking of Instagram, actually, there's something coming out that we should all just probably call influencer Lunchables. YouTube stars Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, and KSI have announced Lunchly, which is a, quote, better for you lunch option that includes the influencers' products like Prime Hydration and Feastables. But I think it's worth debating whether this is going to be a better for you lunch option, Juliet.
Yeah, based on the information provided, I'm not sure that it sounds like it. I know that it said somewhere that the energy drink would be lower in sugar, that some of the dessert items would have less sugar. But, some of the items mentioned were like pizza, nachos with turkey, which is healthier than beef, cheese and crackers. So I don't know. I'm not hearing a lot of vegetables or fruits in that lineup.
No, and the fact that they're taking on Lunchables, which A, still exists, and B, has actually become a larger part of lunches even because they're trying to become integrated with public school lunch systems and everything.
Right.
It just seems like this is almost the same thing as a Lunchable aside from this lower sugar energy drink because as you mentioned, pizza, turkey and cheese with crackers, those are the staples of the Lunchable. But hey, maybe it is going to be like kale pizza or something like that in this case. We'll see.
I mean, I have seen at Erewhon that you can get, I think, a keto pizza and it has like a cauliflower crust, I want to say. There still is the issues of cured meats and high sodium, but yeah, maybe it'll be like an Erewhon Whole Foods version of a Lunchable, but we'll see.
Yeah. Just add new partners, Erewhon, bring them on.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Uber. Uber announced a rider ID verification program that is supposed to help drivers feel safer from scammers and other bad actors. Uber has already banned around 15,000 rider accounts for fake or inappropriate names. And finally, Alphabet's drone company Wing and the UK startup Apian are teaming up with the UK's National Health Service to use drones to deliver time-sensitive blood samples between 2 London hospitals. All right, let's move on to the main story. So, Flappy Bird. For people who liked to play online games, there were very few out there that were as popular as Flappy Bird. Just over 10 years ago, it was an absolute sensation. I was looking at a sort of a trailer put together on social media about Flappy Bird, and at one point, it was the number one app in many countries. It was downloaded well over 50 million times, and then all of a sudden it was gone. Juliet, what is the backstory behind Flappy Bird?
So apparently the backstory is that its creator, Dong Nguyen, just had this sensation. I did not play much Flappy Bird. I think, if any, I may have seen someone play Flappy Bird, but it was a very simple game with a little cartoon that you had to navigate through pipes, I think just by tapping on the screen.
Yeah, it looked like Mario, kind of.
Yeah, and that was kind of part of the problem. The whole thing blew up. It just blew up. Everyone was playing it. I'm not sure why, but it was very popular. And then, of course, I think it was more a success than he was prepared for. People were talking about how it was plagiarizing Mario. It wasn't that great, which I think when you're just like a little app designer and you're kind of making a Mario adjacent game, you do not expect to be front page news like this. And then through in-game advertising, he claimed he was making $50,000 a day.
Okay.
That is how many people were playing it. But he also came out and said that he thought it was addictive, that people were playing it too much, that it had become toxic, that he couldn't sleep at night, that he never wanted any of this. And then he pulled the whole thing down in 2014.
Just so wild. And this was such a huge story. It's been 10 years, so, I'm sure people have forgotten, but literally they were talking about this on like World News Tonight.
Yes.
The very adult broadcasts, that go on at 5:30 and they'd be like Flappy Bird. And I mean, it was huge.
Right.
And also just very weird. An obsession with birds in that period of time, because Angry Birds were also such a huge video game. Kind of surprising.
Right. And, Angry Birds seemingly took another path. I think there's an Angry Birds movie. There's Angry Birds merchandise. There's Angry Birds t-shirts. I don't know that Candy Crush has that same sort of entertainment value, but Candy Crush everywhere all the time. You can still play Candy Crush. But Flappy Bird, it was like the guy just couldn't handle the fame.
Yeah. And all right. So now we have Flappy Bird. It's coming back supposedly by next year. It might look the same. It might even feel the same for people who are playing it. But it's not the same, though. Why is that?
This is interesting. It's like the inverse of Movie Pass. Everyone was like, oh, Movie Pass is coming back with the original guy. This is coming back without the original guy. It is a group of so-called passionate fans. They refer to themselves as the Flappy Bird Foundation. They are getting ready to release a new version of, I guess, the old game for Android and iOS in 2025. I guess you can play it now on Telegram if you like, according to Polygon. I don't have Telegram. I have not tried to do that. But the problem here is that Wynn is not involved at all. In fact, it seems like he was just sort of cut out entirely. The patent office, because of, what he said and what he did, has decided that patent was abandoned. So these guys came in and they just snapped it right up. And Wynn, who has not been on social media for 7 years, got back online to say, yeah, I don't have anything to do with this. And also, this is, I think, the most interesting part, to declare that he does not support crypto.
Oh, yeah.
Because crypto seems to be a huge part of what is happening here. Apparently, at some point, though some of this has been scrubbed from the website, Flappy Bird was meant to be integrated with crypto. I believe the idea that you could like play and earn. We saw that a lot with crypto and NFTs when that was the big thing for a while, that you would play a game, and as you played the game, you would get tokens, and then you could spend those on in-game items. So it seemed like maybe that's what they were kind of trying to do.
Yeah.
Which could make it super addictive all over again, I suppose.
Right. And perhaps, because it is unclear exactly how crypto may or may not be integrated, but would perhaps, make people want to get more into crypto. I would have a feeling could be the end goal potentially here. But it is really shocking. I was reading an Ars Technica story about the way in which this sort of new foundation ended up being allowed to use Flappy Bird. It goes back to 2014. Like almost as soon as he pulled Flappy Bird out of the App Store, they started making moves. And so it was truly a years-long process. And when, he doesn't live in America, he lives in Vietnam. So it was just really, this thing where he was kind of checked out, plus he, lives in another country. So he didn't respond to a lot of these different kind of court filings, and then bam, gone.
Right.
And now here we have it, a little bit of crypto control, which seems like is not entirely unusual to have, like you were saying, crypto affiliations with these games.
Yeah. And I think when people first started talking about cryptocurrency and gaming and NFTs and gaming, it actually seemed like kind of an interesting and almost practical use case. Because if you think of like an NFT as a digital item, where do you encounter digital items? In games. There are multiple games where you can buy downloadable content or in-game items like armor for your character to wear or weapons. And then I think the idea was that you would be able to keep that item across platforms. That was kind of like the selling point. But as you know, people are just not so into that. anymore. And I
Yeah.
think my question with Flappy Bird would be, is that sort of like a cash grab? Is this one of those pay to play games where, there's certain mobile games that are very difficult unless you pay for, I don't know, more stars or more energy to access new levels or to get more content. Like it just feels like it's kind of taking everything that Wynn realized he hated about the original Flappy Bird and doing it more, but on blockchain.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Juliet, I've never played Flappy Bird. Like you said, you didn't really play it that much.
Me neither.
What is your top game?
Like of all time? Like a mobile game
of all
or
time.
any game?
Any.
Well, when I was a kid, it would have been Doom, but I think as an adult, it's probably Baldur's Gate 3 or The Witcher 3. Mobile, it's kind of a different story with mobile, but you know what I love to do? I love to, when I'm trying to fall asleep, do the New York Times crossword puzzle app. And then if that doesn't work, I will go find one of those little mobile escape room games where you're like, oh no, I'm trapped in this. It's just like a picture of like a room and you have to like click on everything and solve all the little puzzles. Like I have played probably 1 million of those trying to fall asleep over the past 7-8 years. And, if you're like, I would like to play one of those, my favorite one is called Forever Lost.
Okay. Delightful. I mean, that sounds like a good proposition, something that can help you fall asleep. That sounds like a great game to me.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget what I was doing in a puzzle and then I have to completely start over the next night. But yeah, that's what I like to do.
Excellent. All right. I personally am partial to Mario Kart on Switch as somewhat of an adult. And, but to go back to the classics, I was a huge fan of Wave Race Nintendo 64.
Oh, yeah.
A true throwback. So, okay. They should bring that one back and, maybe, put it with crypto, whatever. I don't care. I would probably play that one. That'll do it for us today. So thank you everyone for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. So if you're not subscribed, please go get signed up at thehustle.co/email, and we will see you tomorrow.
With access to so much information, it's hard to feel like an informed, discerning citizen. That's why Make Me Smart, a podcast from Marketplace, makes it easy for you to stay in the know. Each weekday, hosts Kai Rizdal and Kimberly Adams unpack the latest from DC, explore the day's tech news, and they make sense of the economy. Because in a world that's constantly changing, we all need to stay smart. Listen to Make Me Smart wherever you get your podcasts. Heyo, hustlers. HubSpot's Inbound Conference is right around the corner, and you better believe the Hustle Daily Show will be there in full force. The lineup this year is as impressive as any. Ryan Reynolds, Serena Williams, Kara Swisher, just to name a few. And while we may not be as cool as Ryan Reynolds or as accomplished as Serena Williams, the Hustle Daily crew will be recording our podcast live every day, bringing you the latest in business and tech from the center of Inbound. You can catch us at the HubSpot Media Broadcast Studio every morning around 8 a.m. Be sure to check us out and come up afterwards and say hi. We'd love to meet you. We'll see you at Inbound.